Hey Corey, this is my long-awaited message in response to your original Iraq blog, and also to kind of respond to discussions that we've had about the Iraq War. Since your stance on Iraq has already been made clear, my posting is more an inquiry as to your opinions about our government's policy um, since occupying Iraq. Just so you know, kind of know where my questions are coming from, I'll go ahead and just kind of give you a brief summary on my views on Iraq. As far as our current occupation, I feel that we are there and we need to stay there. I do think that since our invasion of Iraq, we've brought greater instability to Iraq and the Middle East. But regardless on anyone's opinion of, of what kind of job we've done there, we do need to stay there because we're stuck there. And I mean, if we pull out at this point, it's going to be far more disastrous than if we just stay and try to finish the job. As far as the reasons for occupying Iraq, yes, I agree with you. Saddam needed to go. He was a horrible dictator. He was a murderer. He needed to be taken out of power. As far as bringing stability to the Middle East, I agree. That needs to happen. That's our moral duty. As far as the oil, however, I'm not so sure, simply because there's only about 50 years of oil left on the planet. So going into the Middle East and killing people does not seem to me like it's a viable solution, and it's a short-term solution to a very, very long-term problem. And I do think necessity is the mother of all invention, and you had mentioned in your blog that having rising gas prices is not going to cause us to pursue greener energies. I happen to actually disagree. Just look at the gas prices in Europe, Australia, Asia. They have been pushed to more efficient cars. They've been pushed to greener energies. I mean, we all know that U.S. automakers are held to emissions and economy standards which are much lower than that of any other continent. I just feel that our current presidential administration has pushed environmental concerns under the rug for too long. I think that Bush Sr. did it. I think that Bush Jr. is doing it. And I think bullheadedness is the only thing that's preventing our government and our corporations from pursuing greener energies. So, in short, I just don't think that oil is a legitimate reason for us to go to the Middle East, at least beyond a diplomatic standpoint. I just don't think that war is ever the answer to things like that. So that briefly is my opinion on Iraq. My questions for you, as I said before, relate to our government policy since invading Iraq. So question number one, assuming that going was the right decision, on which, by the way, I'm undecided, and assuming that the reasons for going were Saddam, stability, and oil, why then did the Bush administration tell us that we were going to Iraq to find terrorists and to find weapons of mass destruction? To me, that seems pretty misleading. In fact, it seems like the use of fear as a means to indoctrinate the American people. So I would like to know what your opinions are on that, and what you think about our policy and our communications policy with the American people. Question number two regards U.S. policy since the Iraq War began. I think it's clear that something has gone wrong in Iraq. You may argue otherwise, but since our declaration of victory in Iraq, we've seen a massive increase in civilian deaths and now a growing concern for Islamic extremists who are crossing the border from Iran and Syria into Iraq and intensifying the situation. Don Rumsfeld, as we now know, called for big changes in Iraq policy before his resignation. So my question is, question number two, what went wrong in Iraq to put us in our current situation? Question number three relates to diplomacy. And this has more to do with our recent attempts at, or lack thereof, of attempts of negotiations with Iran and Syria. I agree that tougher sanctions need to be placed on Iran, but why then has the president refused to sit down at the table? It seems to me that a good negotiator knows that setting public terms for the other side of the discussion to meet before offering a hint at sitting down at the table seems kind of bullheaded, and doesn't seem like it's going to get anywhere. In fact, I think that's going to put up more barriers than it's going to bring down, and it's not going to help anyone. So why not talk with Iran? The second part of question number 3 is why blame the Iraqi government for being inefficient? Because we invaded, we put their government in place, and now we're blaming them for the surge of sectarian violence that has occurred since. I read a quote in Newsweek about a week ago, and I think this sums it up very well, saying, "You don't let a bull loose in a china shop and then blame the china shop for the broken china." So my question for you, question number 3, why is there such an alienation and a lack of diplomacy present in our administration towards the Middle East? So hopefully that's a little bit of food for thought, and I know my response to your original Iraq blog is a little late, and you may have actually addressed some of these issues since, but if you could just respond, just kind of let me know what you think about these things. Thanks.